Hello, all you wonder-filled peoples. April 8th, 2026, the second day, after finalizing and attaining my official nomination papers in the bid to be Mayor of Moncton NB. Today I received a request that I thought I would never receive during this election campaign. A reporter from the CBC Radio Canada, Rachel Govan, contacted me through Facebook Meta Business Suite, a part of the Facebook software I don't currently use, asking an important question concerning if I wanted to conduct an interview on the issue of bilingualism in Moncton. Here's the question. Bonjour, je voulais savoir si vous seriez disponible pour une entrevue sur la question du bilinguisme à Moncton. English translation. Good day, I want to know if you would be available for an interview on the issue of bilingualism in Moncton. And here's my personal perspective on that subject matter and her question. Oh, here we go again. Do you not have a better question to ask, considering all that our city is enduring and needing to resolve? Or is this just a hit piece inspired by my rival candidates vying to be Mayor of Moncton? And if not, then it's just like all the corporate political media types to attempt to stir up trouble where none exist. At least as far as I'm concerned. Have you not been paying attention to what I've been saying about what the crisis points are in my campaign videos that we currently need to address and deal with in the city of Moncton, which truly affects all alike? The French, English, and those of us that are attempting at being bilingual. And really, it will take a concerted effort by all people within a multilinguistic series of efforts. For I'm sure, based on what I've seen, that even Muslims whom primarily speak Arabic and so many more languages within the cultures they came from, and other peoples that speak the vast numbers of languages they're now found within these communities, all attempt to help our people's homeless plights, no matter the language barriers. For many, humans are beautiful souls, regardless of language or ideologies, and they chose to come to this country and community to find meaningful lives, not have to deal with past rivalries between the French and English Germanic tribes. Anyways, if you want an answer to your question and a form of interview concerning my thoughts about bilingualism in the city of Moncton NB, I'll express those in this digital video manner. That way, it will never be taken out of context or chopped up by anyone, for they will always be able to find it upon the internet, even though I personally find it really difficult to discuss and articulate in a manner that best describes those events. And I think everyone will understand why after watching this video production. Anyhow, here it is. New Brunswick officially became Canada's first and only constitutionally bilingual province, with the passing of its first Official Languages Act on April 18, 1969. 2 years after my fluently French-speaking family moved to Moncton from a prominently French-speaking city of Edmundston NB, because my father had attained a promotion within the Canadian National Railway and had to work at the CNR terminal building on Main Street in Moncton. And even though I was 4 years of age at that time, when the Official Languages Act came into effect, I thought this was cool. And that's because, even as a very small child, I showed an interest in politics. Mostly because all the adults in many rooms were always talking about those things. And yes, I have memory of it, for that initiative was led by Premier Louis J. Robichaud Petit Louis, and the act established French and English as the official languages in New Brunswick, ensuring citizens could receive provincial services in either of the official languages, which is actually a great thing, even though many of those need to be done in a verbal manner. For illiteracy was and is still prominent in many parts of New Brunswick on both sides of that equation, except for the fact that much later in life, I would learn a great many truths surrounding that political action in our two primary languages. And that truth is this, that the status of New Brunswick as a bilingual province was necessary, for our province had almost a 50-50 split in those peoples and forms of languages back then, and equality is part of who we are as Canadians. And in an attempt to lessen or limit all the hatred that was fuming in this province at the time, our premier believed in this action. But in doing so, it has created the heavy burden upon our provincial budget, which to this day is mostly covered by taxpayers and is still overly burdensome towards all our peoples, French or English alike, or even those of us that are bilingual. For one of the largest expenditures in any of New Brunswick's budgets over all those years that our legislative assembly has to deal with is the cost of doing such. But it's only right, and it was necessary. But hopefully, because our peoples are not as illiterate as in the past, and with the advent of all the newer computers, as well as other technologies that I just happen to be involved in pushing forward throughout our province, and even the rest of the world for the last 4 decades. These financial costs will eventually come way down, for they don't have to print the vast quantities of many of those government materials and forms that they once did. It's called print on demand. Now, as it relates to this subject matter, the city of Moncton, New Brunswick, became Canada's first officially bilingual city on August 6, 2002. As previously stated, while New Brunswick itself has been an officially bilingual province since 1969, the municipality of Moncton passed in a unanimous council resolution in 2002 to adopt its own official languages policy led by efforts of the Honorable Mayor of that time, Brian Murphy, which to me seemed to have ulterior motives back then, for I believe it was just an attempt by its former mayor, the one currently running to be Moncton's mayor again in 2026, after he sat as mayor for 6 years, before jumping ship halfway through his second elected tenure as Mayor of Moncton, and moving on to become a sitting Liberal member of the Canadian Parliament, when Claudette Bradshaw stepped down as the first homeless minister and MP for Moncton, Riverview, and Dieppe. Anyways, I can assure you, when elected, I will not step down to serve elsewhere. For if I'm elected Mayor of Moncton, I'll serve my people in that capacity till my tenure is over, and I'll attempt to do it using both official languages when I can. But understand this, my abilities in speaking my mother tongue is not as good as I would like to be able to converse in, but I'll still do my best. It's truly an issue that I personally have, especially for a perfectionist artist. Anyhow, I believe, or should I say perceive things differently than most people, and I always have. For I see Mr. Brian Murphy doing that to enshrine his name into some sort of historical remembrance of that fact, not really to help anyone in Moncton, and could have also been done and achieved to help many of his friends, whom just so happen to be lawyers. For I'm sure that official city bilingual status cost all our citizens and used our taxpayer monies, which includes the cost to pay them all to do it, for they all receive a salary for those City of Moncton Council efforts. And really, what did that accomplish? For nothing really changed in this city, and I know that to be true, because I've been here for all that time, serving in my own unpaid capacity to deal with many other issues that these people would never consider taking on, including after not being successful in my bid to attain a seat in our NB Legislative Assembly in 2014, when I ran for the NB Green Party, in fact the same year that Moncton Centre's riding map was reallocated to encompass 2 former ridings, thereby causing me to compete against 2 incumbents. But even after that, I continued on to conduct many eco-based actions for this riding and really all of New Brunswick. And I'm sure our former Premier Brian Gallant can attest to that, if need be. Anyways, back to where I was at. For Moncton is and was already a city in a bilingual province with a French university, French hospital, and so many more uniquely and prominently French organizations throughout, rightfully so. And it's taken a great many years for many of the French and English to begin to resolve many issues, as well as learn to properly live with one another, or at least tolerate each other. But that fact should also bring up this other concern that not many people talk about. What about the English language and any protections for that as well? For the way I see it, true equality requires such. And if no one stands for that, then true equality does not exist. Which is the same thing that I've been saying as it relates to our municipal water and sewer bills. For Riverview and Dieppe pay a fixed rate for that, and Moncton citizens pay far more for their consumption. It's not equal or fair, and is overly burdensome for many of Moncton's homeowners of whatever language. And that provincial status in 1969 makes all cities in New Brunswick already bilingual, whether they want to believe it or not. And that includes all the smaller communities throughout all of New Brunswick that are prominently English-speaking. Such a true waste of money to bring that status within Moncton, when that status was already there. And you should all know this fact, Moncton had a homeless issue back then in 2002 as well. Just not to the same excessive crisis degree as now, or filled with those types of drugs that are flowing on our streets and in the veins of our beloved peoples, whom have been abandoned by many corporate political types. For that homeless issue in this city goes back to when I served at the CHC, Moncton's first homeless shelter in the late 1970s and 1980s. And all those politicians in 2002 did nothing about all those facts, just like all their predecessors going back into the 1970s and 80s. Now, as far as my capabilities in speaking French are concerned, I do attempt to speak it from time to time, but more practice would surely help. But my complete schooling up to grade 6 in full French limits the extent of what I truly comprehend, or my capabilities in properly articulating my extended upon thoughts and great solutions that could truly help our communities. In other words, I could surely not debate with even many students from the University of Moncton. But that does not really matter, for my heart is French, many of my mannerisms are from my mother tongue, and I truly love many of my family and friends, whom speak and converse in French every day. It's truly such a beautiful and passionate language. And to be factual and point out something that people see when I converse in either language. When I speak, you'll see it in my face, for the passion concerning anything that I stand for is reflected upon my face. I even had people think that I'm mad or angry when speaking, for it shows. Even though I'm not, it still appears that way. And there's a big reason why that is, for when I was growing up and attending school, I was bullied beyond belief. Not just verbal bullying, but great physical, abusive bullying by large groups of primarily the French-speaking students, all because I have an Irish surname. And I can only assume they thought I was English. And later by many English-speaking students in the same manner because I spoke French in their presence. Let's put it this way, it was so bad while I attended French classes or school that one of my teachers wanted to have me state my name of Jeffrey within a French manner, like Geoffrey, thinking that would help, but yet those teachers did nothing to stop that abusive bullying, which really pissed my mother off. And understand this, she was raised and spoke in pure Northern NB and Quebec French every day. That said, I faced a no-win scenario. Anyhow, upon enduring that for years while attending school, I really pushed my mother to transfer me to English schooling because I thought it would help, mostly because I could not find or understand why they were treating me that way, for I was not a mouthy child, so there had to be something that I could not pin down. But they surely could. And after a long time of back and forth between grades 4 to 6, she reluctantly gave into my constant request and had me transferred to a lower English grade 6 for an expected grade 7 French class that I was to attend after summer break, where my journey to what I thought would be a better, less stressful education would transpire. And that brought up a whole lot of other issues that the school board, District 15, eventually had to deal with, for I could not read and write English to their required levels. And after being tested by the school board to an extensive degree, while bouncing me from one school and grade level to another, they eventually placed me in a modified mixed grade 8 and 9 English classroom at the old Edith Cavell School, with one of the best teachers that I could have ever had. I still remember all his efforts in helping and teaching all of us in that class. He was truly an exceptional person and teacher. I hope he's still alive and doing well in his retirement. For I truly love being in school and learning language arts, science, and social studies, as well as the many forms of arts and shop classes. Just not all the constant violent bullying surrounding me during recess, lunchtime, and even after school. It was truly akin to a form of terror. For when you literally get the shit kicked out of you almost every day by a group of your so-called peers for no apparent reason, you start to question what's truly going on. And that journey really did not go the way that I thought it should have gone. But at least I started to comprehend the truth on both sides of that language debate, if you want to call it that. For their parents were causing them to act in those manners, whether by inciting them to hate, by hearing them speak at home about the French or English. But eventually, after years of tolerating all of this, I left school, moved out on my own at 13 years of age, upon being given an ultimatum from my mother to go to school, get a job, or move out, which I did. And eventually I learned how to street fight as I fought groups of vile peoples, and much later learning how to control my anger that I was feeling for everything I had endured. And much later, I even studied martial arts and its control mannerisms for over 7 years after some time, but not before going through so much more. And believe me, the bullying from others completely stopped. But then I had to stop myself, for I was becoming the very type of person that I despised and was looking to fight with. In other words, a bully. Anyways, there's still so much more to what transpired during those many years that I could write a book or two concerning all of it. And maybe I will in time. After all, I'm a published author and illustrator now that I have attained my true educations in many fields and chosen which of the languages to focus on. Anyways, it took me a great many years to get over what I experienced, but I never really hated anyone for the language they spoke, only the manners that they treat each other. But I still suffer from a form of hindrance in speaking French, for I believe I have been forcibly programmed to no longer use that skill. But I'm slowly pushing myself to break it. And yes, I've spoken to real physicians about it, and that's what they said. So, I've seen and witnessed the pure hatred on both sides, and truly thought that our society had grown past those former linguistic mannerisms by now. But apparently not. Anyways, when it comes to the bilingual nature of Moncton and its peoples, I truly believe language is a choice that many make, and that's a good thing. And no one should be forced to choose or speak a language that they can't articulate properly. But I also comprehend that many parents want the best for their children's futures. So to have your child learn both languages is not a bad thing. It's truly a benefit in so many ways, as long as those children don't have to endure what I have. But really, it's not for everyone, for there are some people that can only handle dealing with one language. And the way I see it, if you can communicate in at least one of those languages, then true understandings can be perceived by all. For our translations matrix have improved over the last few decades. For clarity, everyone needs to understand this. New Brunswick's Official Languages Act, 2002, rooted in the 1969 Act and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, guarantees the equal status of English and French in all provincial government, legislative, and judicial institutions. It mandates active offers of service in both languages, protects language rights for the public, and dictates that municipal services meet bilingual standards in certain regions. For the true intent of the New Brunswick's Official Languages Act of 1969 was intended for the government of New Brunswick, as well as municipal governance bodies, to achieve the services that all New Brunswickers require in whatever official language they required it in, either the French or English language, and was never intended to push all our peoples into attaining the ability to speak and write in both official languages. Nor was it intended to force all private small businesses or not-for-profit organizations, whether partly funded by any government or not, to do those same things either. And as far as I'm concerned, a great many of our past politicians have taken all of these things way too far, and that includes those two politicians currently seeking the position of the office of the Mayor of Moncton. For the true intent of all that was to have all forms of New Brunswick governance bodies to provide those justified services to help make everyone's lives better, and surely was not intended to make their lives more difficult. Furthermore, those politicians currently pushing for more stringent adherence of those principles found in that act that it was never intended to affect or be enforced upon. Primarily goes public sector organizations and businesses. It's just like them to attempt these types of things, for they don't have any platform to stand on, and they are attempting at deflecting everyone's attentions away from that fact. And I know that to be true, for I've been observing all of them for some time now. Anyways, I hope this answers your question and sets that record straight, but I also hope this shows the people of Moncton and surrounding areas that it really does not matter what languages you speak. If your heart, soul, experiences, and solutions for helping all the peoples of our communities is in the right place, that you can still achieve great things in your life and also even help others. And we can do all of this in a recognized bilingual city and province. And as far as I'm concerned, it's time to just do it. Truthfully, Jeffrey McCluskey, your candidate for Mayor of the City of Moncton 2026.